Alright guys, welcome back. So let's talk about IK. Um, to me, IK is some of the important things you kind of want IK to be able to do is that you want to maybe put the head here on the pelvis, and you just tilt the pelvis. You kind of want this hand to follow, right? So that's one thing you want it to be following. Another thing is when the hand is on the head, not a very good animator, but just to show you what I mean, right? When you rotate the head, you kind of want the hand to follow, right? So to do that, we kind of wanted to set up very similar thing that our FK is doing. We need a bunch of locators, but if you really think about it, instead of using locators, you can also just use groups, because locators, the only difference is that locators have visualization, right? You know where they are. They have a visual appearance here, but a group is actually everything you need. So you will see a lot of people using just groups to do that, and that's totally okay. So let's try that. If I control G here, now you can see I created a null group. I can call this guy transform left arm IK space, and this is for the clavicle. Okay, I just control D three times, and I got this one for the pelvis. This one is for the head, the two places I was talking about. And then what else? The word. Okay, all right. And then I just need to match them to the controller here, right? So let me grab that, and then here, the controller, match all transform. We can put it here on the shelf by holding down Control Shift and click on this command, and it's going to be added to the shelf. Okay, but I can also just hit the let me do that again here. Okay, should be able to just hit the G button to do that. Anyway, the bad thing about this grouping thing is that you don't know where they are until you see the pivot, right? Cool. Anyway, so when that is done, then we can go ahead and try to use a offset group again, or a space group on the controller to receive that input. All right. And then we just grab all these and then the group. But this time, instead of orange, it's gonna be the parent, because I kind of wanted to control all those things. All right, cool. So now they have control over that, and if I move them all together, I'm moving the controller. So then I need to find out the input for these guys, who is dragging these guys around, and also I can group them together just to organize, right? I can call this guy GRP, and that goes to also the arm rig group. Okay, so we have another one. So this is the IK space, this is the FK space control. All right, so for the IK, the clavicle will be the clavicle joint or clavicle controller. Doesn't matter. I think clavicle controller will be better because that could actually avoid having like cycling. So constraint parent. Okay, and for pelvis, this will be the pelvis joint. Okay, and for the head, it's going to be the head joint. And for the word, it's going to be the word. Okay, now we have 4 constraints on these guys, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So after that, this should be following like partially with these guys. Okay, and all I have to do is add attribute to specify different possible following options, right? Let me name this also parent. So we start with pelvis, actually clavicle, and then we move on to, let's see, the pelvis, right? And then we move on to the head, and then move on to word. Okay, add that. So now we have those options, and then we can move on to animation key, set driven key, set. Driven one will be the follow group, so that's gonna be this guy, right? Load driven. All right, the driver. Whoops. This one actually, load driven. The constraint. The driver will be the controller, and we're using the parent to drive these guys, so we can key it here first. Actually, go ahead and change the values. Right. Key it so that the clavicle is 1, the others are 0, and here we're using clavicle. And moving on to pelvis, and we just change pelvis to 1 and the others to 0, and key again, and then move on to the head, and then just do the head. Okay. And then eventually the word, and then here we just use the word to be 1 and the others to be 0, and key it. All right, so that's gonna be the set driven key part. It's word now, so if I drag the word, I should make that follow. But you do notice there's one thing that is not really moving, which is this guy here. Okay. Now there are times I think you want it to be following, and there are times you want it to be not following. So we can actually have a control to tell when do we want this guy to follow or not. So on this guy, we can create a attribute, cause it's a follow wrist, and then we can go with a boolean and add. So this is going to be the switch, so that we can make it follow the wrist or not. We can grab the wrist controller and then the group of the elbow, or we can have like a group above it. Follow GRP. And then we just need to use this wrist controller to constrain that follow GRP, do a parent constraint. All right, now this then will be controlled by the follow wrist. So we just need to go for a node editor, and then we just add our controller in, and we add the constraint in. We just use the follow wrist to control that input from the wrist controller. So now it's off. That means the constraint is off. It's not following. When it's on, it is following, right? And when that is following, then everything's following, right? Cool. And we're in the word mode, I guess. If I change it to pelvis mode, then the word should be able to move it, but the clavicle should not be able to move it anymore, right? It's stationary, and this cannot move it, but the pelvis can move it. Okay, so if I drag it there to the pelvis, this guy here, and I can use pelvis to rotate these guys, right, with it. All right, same goes for the head. If I just move it to the head, maybe here, right? She's doing like, what's going on? I'm confused, and I have a lot of twisting issue over there. Anyway, so if I switch to head, okay, and I should be able to use the head to control it, right? Cool. So that's going to be the space control for the IK. And down the way, you can see there are a lot of things that we can enhance or we can change. Like here, this guy, to make it follow or not follow, we have a follow control. But we can also, sometimes we want this guy to be locked on the table or whatever. So we can have others inputs, but this is just a sneak peek of both IK, FK, and how you can achieve them to follow different part of the body. But that's not limited to just those options. Depending on the requirement, you may add or even not doing all those things. Anyway, cool. So that's going to be the space control for the IK. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.